Hello everyone! For my presentation, I will be going over what we learned in Module 4, which was language impairment in dual language children. First, as you can see, we will be going over specific language impairment, also known as SLI. It is a developmental disorder that is very common. How common, you may ask? Well, about 7%, which is almost like 7 in 100 kids having SLI. The average age in which children develop SLI is around 4 and 7 years old. They start to develop delays in their language development that can be both general and specific. As you can see here, general delays occur over the course of 2 years. The delays manifest in vocabulary size, sentence length, and narrative abilities. Specific delays include aspects of morphosyntax in which they can acquire a second language morphemes at a later age. SLI causes delays in language processing skills and an increased risk for reading impairment. Another fact is that in the beginning years of learning English as a second language, children demonstrate SLI characteristics. Through frequent exposure at home or school, they slowly become bilingual children. Which brings us to our next section, typical early bilingual development. And many people believe that bilingual children have language delays and that knowing two languages confuses them. However, this has proven to be untrue. Typical milestones of bilingual development can be seen in vocabulary, mean length of utterance, morphosyntax, and the ways they handle their dominant versus non-dominant language. First, let's look at vocabulary. For bilingual children, it may appear that their vocabulary is not as large as their monolingual peers. However, if you think about it, it's twice as large when you combine all the words they know from their first and second language. This goes to show that this is false when people say that bilingual children can't accumulate concept word pairings as fast as their monolingual peers. Another milestone in mean length of utterance, another milestone is mean length of utterance. Although the average sentence length for bilingual children is at a low level compared to monolingual children, it is still in a normal range. And our third milestone, as you can see, is morphosyntax. When it comes to morphosyntax, bilingual children follow a similar pattern as those who are monolingual. One example can take place as both bilingual and monolingual children may start to use spontaneous speech at the same time, but at this point bilinguals may take more accuracy in producing grammatical morphemes in both languages. Or take another example, they might take longer to master more complex syntactic constructions and sentence formations in both languages. And our fourth milestone is their mastering of dominant versus their non-dominant language. Just like I mentioned before, the mastering of a child's dominant and non-dominant language can be a typical milestone of bilingual development. But first, what is dominant language? A bilingual child's dominant language is the language to which they receive more exposure, and exposure to both languages is equal in this case. And their non-dominant language, bilingual children may have less language abilities in the second language compared to their monolingual peers. Now, let's move on to problems that can come up during assessment and identification of bilingual children. One is formal measures. Formal measures is that in which bilinguals are assessed with the same milestones as monolingual children. This can become a bias, but unfortunately there are no other assessment options. The second challenge is an overlap between the first and second language in a bilingual child. Now, in the beginning stages of this child learning English as a second language, it might look similar to a language disorder, or SLI as we know, as they struggle with the language. Our third challenge is considering the factors in learning two languages. In language dominance, a child may be more comfortable and skilled in a certain language to express themselves. And in language exposure, it's the amount of time a child spends using each language. And a child might be exposed to one language more at home, but another language more frequently at school or in the community with their friends and family members around them. And our fourth challenge is cultural issues in testing, such as knowledge of food and animals. Cultural background can influence a child's understanding of certain concepts. For example, a child from a different cultural background may have different knowledge about types of food or animals. Some may they have different knowledge and different beliefs in each and every one of them. And another factor to consider within this challenge is also relationship with adults. Some cultural norms can shape how children interact with adults. So, testing might need to consider cultural variations in communication styles and their respect for authority figures in their culture. And our fifth challenge is in evaluating bilingual children is the fact that each bilingual child is different in test performance and production and comprehension. It is common to see uneven performance across areas and tests. And bilingual children may excel in certain subjects in one language but struggle in that same subject in another language, which is natural and does not indicate a problem like many may believe. It is also common, like I said, to see a difference between production and comprehension. Some bilingual children might understand a language well but find it challenging to express themselves in that language. So it's important to recognize that abilities in understanding and producing language can develop at different rates. In this last section, we will explore the strategies for evaluating bilingual children. And we can begin by obtaining information about both languages by using the bilingual English-Spanish assessment, which is also known as the BSA, I would say. It's to evaluate their language strength. Or you can use other informal assessments in both languages that test the child's proficiency in both languages. Our second strategy is to collect information about the child's language exposure. And why, you may ask? Well, it's to understand the amount of time a child spends using each language. This information helps to know their language proficiency and usage patterns. Now, if you can see, number 3 says another strategy is to collect information about the child's cultural background. It's to know how it may influence their language upbringing. And the fourth strategy is to differentiate between language general and language specific measures. This means assessing a child's ability to learn a language through exercises like repeating made up words or real words. And number 5 would be explore alternative norm referencing tests by, for example, comparing the language norms of children in the area, like if you're in a school area, and compare it to your child's performance or student's performance. And our last strategy is number 6, to apply dynamic assessment. You can do this by using a teach, retest approach, which helps understand a child's learning potential by testing how they respond to instructions. And that concludes our review of language impairment in dual language children. I hope you guys learned a bit more and refreshed your mind on this Module 4 presentation.